Hello everyone, my name is Conrad on behalf of CameraStuff. Hope you're doing pleasantly well, and welcome to yet another episode of In the Limelight, where we look around the South African photographic industry and we find some fascinating people to interview. So tonight we are interviewing a professional photographer and also development coach. Also have some questions pertaining to that. We also have a person, Emma O'Brien, who has a very fascinating portfolio. So I'm kind of understating it a little bit, but starting as a wedding photographer, now shifting towards the world of pet photography, and obviously getting involved in animal rescue, guide dogs as well. It's a variety of different things relating to pet photography. And yeah, tonight we decided to host it and ask her a bunch of questions. So if you are joining us well from YouTube land and Facebook land, if you have any questions to ask, please do drop them in the comment section and we'll tackle them as we go along. Right, so I think without further ado, let's bring in our host, shall we? Hello, Emma. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing pleasantly well. Thank you very much. How was your day otherwise?
All good. All good today. Yep, admin day today.
Oh gosh, you're the admin. All the little things that accommodate photography, so it's not always glitz and glamour, it's the paperwork in the background that need to be done as well, right?
Yeah, in fact, actually, it was a very unglamorous day of being at the Mac store, having my iMac brought back to life. So thankfully, it came back to life.
Good. Well, that's good news then, at least. So otherwise, today could have been a lot worse.
Otherwise,
but
today
luckily
could have been a bit sad, but yeah.
managed to revive the MacBook. Good news. So I did mention, kind of shifting from wedding photography to now pet photography, but I think let's zoom out a little bit. Do you want to tell us how you got into photography? So kind of from the ground up, how you got started and what propelled you into it.
Yeah, so I've always had an interest in photography, and I have a daughter, and I had her when I was very young. So I was 22 when I had Rosie, and it was a bit of an opportunity for a career change, because prior to that, I hadn't really had much of an exciting career. I worked for my dad. So and I took myself off to college and I went and studied photography for 2 years. And obviously we're going back 2 decades. So we were shooting film and in the dark room. And I'm just trying to think when the first digital camera arrived, but it was around that time. So I'd started out with film. And when I was at college, I was very interested in documentary photography. So what was a big pull for me was telling stories. And a photographer I really loved is a guy called W. Eugene Smith, who used to work for Life magazine. And his work was all about kind of telling stories of the underdog, if you like, and stories that people wouldn't necessarily know about. And I loved that. I loved that piece of making a difference in the world with your work and, kind of just bringing unknown things to the fore. So that was what really inspired me and what I really enjoyed. And then I became a wedding photographer, which was, again, it was that you'll see that across the course of my career, as we talk through it, there were lots of accidents really of how I accidentally falling into things. And I just happened to befriend one of the other ladies on the course, and she was shooting weddings for a local photography studio and just went and introduced me to the guy, and off I went shooting weddings. So I shot a couple of weddings for this guy, and I think we were paid £50 to go out and shoot a wedding. And I did a couple, and I think in my youthful vigor, I just thought, I think I can do this, and I just literally started a wedding photography business. So we won't even talk about what those first sets of images must have looked like, because I think it's safe to say I freestyled.
I also remember starting out as a wedding photographer, and I dare not look back at my first batch whatsoever. But yeah, it's a kind of rite of passage. Like you need that first batch of, dare I say, quote unquote, cringe to kind of get you into the game.
Yep. Yeah, and I think for me it was also a passage into making a living quite quickly from photography. Because I wasn't in a position where I could, go out and be a documentary photographer, living in Milton Keynes in the UK. So it was how do I do something I enjoy for a living? And then, after a few years of doing wedding photography, I was sort of starting to think, well, I'm doing something I used to enjoy, but don't anymore for a living. So when I moved to South Africa in 2009, I ditched the weddings and just moved into portrait photography because I think the thing with, and we'll talk a bit more about this, I'm sure, with being a creative person is, I think, in order to bring the best out of your own talent and also to show up in the best way for your clients, you've got to love what you're doing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. At any point, if you kind of take the fake it till you make it approach, or if you don't pour your heart and soul, as cheesy as it may sound, into it, it's going to reflect in your images. And
yes,
people are attracted to what looks authentic and genuine, especially pertaining to the photographer. I mean, the photographer goes hand in hand with the photography as well. Yeah, so as you say, if you're not in love with what you do anymore, it's going to show, and it's going to have a bit of a snowball effect thereafter. So it's an interesting question. Actually, I have like 5 follow-up questions from that. So I think just let's start with the latest one. So how do you maintain that passion and vigor within your career, making sure that you don't, quote unquote, fall out of love with photography?
Yeah, and that's a really great question. And I think this kind of falls into the business side of photography as well. Is what I did when I started out was I mistook being very busy for being successful. And I think I ended up working an awful lot. And I ended up kind of really burning myself out. So by the time I was moving to South Africa, I was able to have a little bit of a gap. And then I literally kind of repeated that same pattern again with the portrait photography work. And it took actually working with a business coach for me to take a step back and just have a look at, hang on a minute, what am I doing here? Because I'd got to the point with my portrait photography business that I got to with my wedding photography business. And I thought, there's a bit of a pattern repeating here of just constantly working and not really having any spare money, which is completely counterintuitive. So it took actually working with somebody to redesign how I do business, to put my prices up and have fewer clients and earn more from those clients. So that's the kind of model I sit with, and that's the model I work on, which allows me to not be working 24/7, because I think that is, for a creative person, what kills it for you. Because we need time to work on new projects, come up with new ideas, try stuff out. And if you don't have that time, I think you can get very stagnant and very bored and frustrated.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly difficult, managing that quote unquote Goldilocks zone where you have a decent amount of clients coming in, but also having time to process what you're doing, and obviously free time as well. This back off discount. It's like just spending time with away from photography is also very important. And I think this is a struggle people get into when they start out into their own careers. Is I kind of like it. Something you can put on a t-shirt, and don't mistake a lot of work for being successful. And it's a big topic, but this is probably a book's worth of what that actually means. But you kind of get into your groove, and with a bit of guidance here and there, just to kind of fine tune, optimize what you do. It's a very struggle. I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
I think the thing is that I found, and it was very difficult, was I put my prices up quite a lot because I had to, because I'd run out of hours to sell, and that was quite a challenge for me. And I think this is a problem with creative people, is not really standing in your value and not really owning your value. And I think a lot of creative people struggle with saying no. And that's one thing I've learned to do over the course of my career, is to say, no, I don't do that anymore. So I used to do portraits and events and go out on evenings shooting stuff, and I hate doing that. I don't do it anymore. So I won't do event photography. I'd rather say no to it. So it's important, and I think sometimes we have to understand that in saying no to things that don't light you up, you make space for things that do.
Yes, absolutely. Speaking of which, I'm going to show people what you're capable of. So just a little slideshow as to what you sent us. So just give people an idea as to what you get up to nowadays. So this is a photography career that spanned more than 20 years, but these are your most recent work, and obviously pertaining a lot to pet photography. So very interesting transition going from weddings to portraits to this.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell us a bit about what used to be the figurative underdog, now to the literal one?
Yeah.
As to how all of this represents now.
So much like the falling accidentally into wedding photography, I fell accidentally into dog photography. And I adopted a dog from Santon SPCA in 2011, and at the time I'd relocated here got divorced and relocated here with a guy who was on a good salary, so I had a bit of a gap to not have to go to work for a while, so I could potter about. And I went to Santon SPCA, adopted Jeremy, and got chatting to some of the committee folk there, and just said, "Listen, I'm a photographer. Can I help you with some fundraising?" And I hadn't really spent much time photographing dogs before that. And we put together we came up with the concept of a calendar. I should have found one, because it was quite funny. One of the previous GMs at Santon SPCA said to me a couple of years ago, "I found this first calendar. Your work's got a bit better since then, hasn't it?" It was because it was crap, really. But then we've year on year we've done this calendar project, and of course from shooting that first calendar, I started to get commissions for people wanting portraits of their pets. And then from Santon SPCA, I got involved with Claw, and then it just kind of snowballed, like I say, totally accidentally, and it's just been something that I've figured out along the way, and I love it. So here we are.
So all those images I showed people, we're going to talk about them one by one in a little bit, so do stay tuned for that. So capturing dog and cat photos, I'm assuming a lot of other pets as well, sprinkled here and there as well. So how do you go about capturing their personalities? So that's question number one.
Yeah.
And question number two is a kind of broad one. Tips and advice when it comes to pet photography.
Yeah. So you obviously got to like pets to photograph them. I think that's point number one. And I think it's over the years, I've kind of got a set of tips and tricks for getting dogs to sit still, getting dogs to tilt their heads. Cats are a whole other. Anyone who's got a cat will know cats just do what they want mostly. So they're a little bit trickier, but it's being patient, I think, is a big thing. It's being able to read the body language of the dog a little bit, and that's something I've learned from when I've been doing commercial shoots, working with professional behaviorists. I've learned to read dog. I mean, I've got a load of dogs, but it's anarchy here, so we won't talk about my dog parenting. And yeah, it's just being patient, and it's being able to make that connection with an animal. And I think that's maybe on an energetic level, they pick up that I like dogs. I don't know. There's a little bit of magic that happens with it, and it's knowing how to also coordinate with the owners to be able to say, I need you to get your dog over here, and I need you to get them to do X, Y, and Z. Some dogs, can just about sit, which is fine. And it's just being able to have that momentary connection with them. With my work, and I think people's work varies. My work is very much, you'll see most of the pictures are dogs are eyes to camera for me.
Mm.
And it's very much about getting that momentary kind of connection, emotional connection with them. And that is done with the help of snacks, squeaky toys. I can do a really good cat noise. Yeah, there's a little bit of an arsenal of techniques that happen behind the scenes.
That just combines over time. So now people share bits and bits of advice here and there, but it, eventually all comes together. And on a day, you just calibrate and optimize everything in terms of capturing what you want. So I had a couple of pet photographers before. Sorry, my table's a little squeaky. Okay, ignore the table squeaky sounds. Question I have to ask here is, what is your success rate in terms of how many photos you take versus the amount that you end up post-processing? So I think this ties in with the amount of patience that is required.
Pretty high. I have a pretty high success rate, I would say. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I think I've had 1 or 2 dogs I haven't been able to photograph, purely because, not from a not sitting still point of view, but I've sometimes had people, and it's usually if I put a call out for commercial work, people are usually very keen to volunteer to have a shoot they don't have to pay for. And I've had a couple of people bring dogs in that are nervous, or bring dogs in that they've not had very long. And you kind of look at that and think, what were you thinking? But anyway, and they didn't let me know. And I've had a couple of dogs where we haven't been able to get them to sit in the studio. They've been visibly very uncomfortable. And I've just had to say, we can't do this because it's not fair on the dog. But I'd say that is so rare that happens. And the only thing sometimes I can't do is if you've got multiple dogs and they're literally bouncing off the walls. Sometimes we'll Photoshop them into one picture is the least stressful, is the path of least resistance for that. But not that often, in all honesty.
Okay, interesting. So question I wanted to ask earlier, what did you take from wedding photography in terms of that entire industry, needing to prepare for it, going about your business, being a wedding photographer, etc., that you now kind of adopted into what you do today?
I think if I think about what put me off wedding photography, bear in mind I was shooting weddings in the UK, so it was dealing with the weather, because as we know, UK weather is not great, and it was dealing with the weather. It was also, at that point, if I'd known then what I knew now about running a photography business, I would have positioned myself very differently. So I was working in a market with the real kind of bottom end of the market, and I had people with like not great venues. It rained, and then people would look at me like you're going to perform a miracle in this. Can I swear on here? Rubbish.
Go ahead. No,
that's not a swear word. I won't say swear. Rubbish venues.
It's okay. I can imagine the word that you wanted to put in.
Rubbish venues, and it got frustrating for me because I couldn't kind of bring to life what I wanted to, if that makes sense. I couldn't kind of fulfill the potential of it. So I think what I took from that is prioritizing creative things, planning creative projects out, and really actually kind of going after what it is I want, and planning, like backing up your work.
In terms of action, we'll try to here may have a bit of a robust, but hopefully connection will be still from your side. Okay or not?
Yeah, I'm a bit choppy. It's not my internet. Yeah, so the big thing weddings is back people.
Very good advice.
I lost half a wedding in 2005, and that has made me paranoid backer upper ever since. So like today you were asking me today what I was up to, and the iMac was coming back from the iStore. They had to wipe my iMac to fix it.
Ooh, ouch. Okay.
Ouch, exactly. However, because I'm paranoid, I had a full backup, and then I've got all of my recent shoots on 2 different hard drives as well. So I I learned a very valuable. So I think that's the most valuable lesson I'll take from wedding photography is backing your work up and having a workflow as well. Because especially when you're shooting weddings and there's bajillions of images to go through, is having a workflow and having a filing system for work.
Okay, very good points. Yeah, so that's
Yes, so the again, it was something of kind of playing with concept of work, and I'd been kind of toying with dogs with jobs, and they seemed like the perfect, guide dogs are they're the assistance dogs is the technical term for the sort of umbrella of dogs that they train up. And I just thought it's quite an interesting concept to look at. So I got in touch with them, and they arranged me some of their clients with their dogs to photograph. Because I think often we see with charities, we see big fundraising drives, we see them asking for money, we see a little bit of the work they do, but we don't really see what happens 6 months, a year after the dogs are handed over. And it's actually just nice to see the dogs with their people. And it was really interesting to talk to the people who've got the assistance dogs and find out from them what difference the dogs have made for them.
Okay, that's very fascinating. Can people see this at your gallery that's now ongoing? So
They
at
can.
the Photo ZA gallery, your work is now being on display at the moment. Am I correct?
It is. Yep, it's up until the end of August. So there's another couple of weeks to go and have a look. So there are 6 very large portraits of people with their assistance dogs.
Okay. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that? So where it is, what can be expected? Already mentioned the dates and whatnot, but let's get into this topic. This is it's a very prestigious, honored thing to do, is to have your work presented and displayed in a gallery.
Yeah, no, it's lovely. This was a little bit of an unexpected exhibition opportunity, because I had an exhibition at Photo ZA in April of a body of work I did of portraits of senior dogs. And then going back to the Santinés PCA calendar, we obviously shot the 2024 one. And we wanted to find somewhere to do the launch of the calendar. And I was talking to the folks at the gallery about it. And then it just so happened that they had a gap in August for me to put an exhibition up through the month of August. So it made me get my skates on to get my dogs portraits all done. And then there were some photos from the Santinés PCA shoot as well. So it was living my best life. I had lots of pictures and dogs and cats having lots of fun. And then we put together some of my previous work as well so it's a bit of not a retrospective is not the right word, but it's a bit of an amalgamation of sets of work, if you like. So, and I also managed to crowbar portraits of 3 of my dogs in there as well, because why not?
Yes, of course, yeah. That's the kind of the inspiration that you get from home, and the love that you put out there, comes from home. So obviously the dogs, the little doggies from home need to feature as well.
Yep.
All right, so that is Photo ZA, so that's Rosebank Mall, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct, yeah.
So at the end of August, so as mentioned a couple of weeks ago. So please do visit. I dropped the webpage in the comment section. So if you want to pay a visit and see Emma's amazing work, contribution so far, please do pay a visit. So beyond that, just as a reminder, you guys can ask questions. So if you're still watching, see we have a good crowd going still. Yeah, so we kind of touched on business, wedding photography, pet photography, etc. So a big chunk of info is out there already. If you have any questions pertaining to what has been discussed already or anything beyond that, please do drop them in the comment section. That's the reason why we do these lives, is to interact with you guys. Also, just as a reminder, in the comment section, all the links are provided as well to Emma's work. It's a nice little link tree there, and you can click on it, and it will guide you to various places where people can reach you, Emma. So I think what we can do now is quickly jump into the slideshow that you gave us, part of your feature on CameraStuff. But just a little segment that we do, we ask people for photos, and we just go through the photos, and you have an opportunity to kind of just talk us through it. So what inspired you, who are the people, what gear you used, etc., etc.
Sure.
So I think we can start with
Recognize Skull. This is Skull. Yes. And Otis is a shoot commissioned by Pet Prints magazine. So they're an animal welfare magazine, and I do the photography. This was shot. I shoot on kit. This was shot with my D850 actually, and I feeling abundant. I think at the end of 2019 or 2018, I can't remember, and I bought myself a fisheye lens.
Nice.
So this is shot with a what is that? It's I can't remember. I'll have to see. I'm not very technical, so I can't remember the start and finish width that it goes to, but it's a fisheye lens. So it was just a bit of fun really for this shoot. Occasionally I'll take two camera bodies out and I'll put the fisheye lens on there. It's one of those things that you don't want to overdo it because it's such a distinctive look. Anyway, so here's Skulk and Otis, and of course it was a feature for the magazine, a feature about because obviously he's a rescue dog advocate, and we had him skipping ground Delta Park with Otis. I think there's some pictures from this shoot, which also with them on the jungle gym as well.
Shame, yeah. So Otis' story, happy ending there. That's always heartwarming to see all of these stories unfold, and you obviously play a big part in that, which I must assume is very rewarding, seeing these images again and again.
Yeah. I think going back to the first question you asked me about why did I become a photographer, and that piece about making a difference for me has been, I think I've ticked that box with the portraits that I shoot at shelters that help the dogs get homes. It's really nice for me when people come, either message me or people come and see me when I've got exhibitions on and come and say, oh, you're the reason I've got this dog that I've got that's torn my couch apart. But so it's your fault. But it's really nice for me when people say, well, I saw one of your pictures and I went to Claw, and
that's wonderful.
Yeah, so it ticks my making a difference box.
A question pertaining to your gallery. Now, prior to that or afterwards, do you get into a habit of printing your own work and displaying your own work around your house? Because I think that's something we as photographers neglect to do, like to be surrounded by your work. Because I see in your background a photo that you took as well. So just on that point, definitely, I think people should print, definitely.
Yes.
Even if it's not for yourself, but to print. But also beyond that, to be surrounded by our work as well.
Oh, absolutely. I've got the 3 pictures of my dogs that are up at the gallery. I'm going to have them framed and put up at home. We've got a wall space ready for them. And I think my business model with my photography is geared up around selling printed stuff for clients. It's something I'm very passionate about. It's a business model that I think is the most profitable way to run a photography business, in my humble opinion. So I spend quite a lot of time printing work. So it's very important. So if anybody is questions about different papers and all that sort of thing, because I'm very fastidious about it. please hit me up for those questions.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, print is just, it's amazing seeing your work printed before. It's like very different as opposed to seeing it on a little monitor. I say amount of pride that you can take in your work and being surrounded by that. Kind of, they say, trophy room in a manner of speaking. That may sound weird, but you kind of remind yourself where you have been. So even if it's work from 10 years ago, just to remind yourself that, hey, you were a little whelp once upon a time with a small little camera, and now you are where you are today. And it is the journey that made you who you are today, and the beginning is part of the journey. And so to have that around you, because I think we end up comparing ourselves to other people instead of comparing ourselves to ourselves. So you 10 years from now and you 10 years in the future. It's a very fascinating story that you need to unfold for yourself and not necessarily compare yourself to others.
Yeah, look, that's a big thing, but I think that's a whole topic. That's a topic you could have a whole broadcast on. So I think I had great advice from another photography mentor that I worked with a couple of years ago, and just quite simply, he just said to me, just stay in your lane. There's no point worrying about what other people are doing. Worry about what you're doing. Stay in your lane. And it's always stuck with me. It's just such a great piece of advice.
Yeah, I think social media has corrupted our minds in terms of where we are and how we kind of see ourselves in the world. Now, I thought about it the other day. A person asked me about a relatively small, quote unquote, following they have on Instagram. It's like 1,000 something, right? And comparatively speaking, it is on the low side, but I told this person, imagine 1,000 people literally standing around you, hand clapping you and telling you you've done an amazing work. Like that would be overwhelming. Imagine inviting 1,000 people to your home and all of them look at your work going, well done, person, you did an incredible job. So that would be overwhelming. It must be too much. Like, who are these people in my house? And I think we kind of forget what that means. Like if you have just 1,000 people following you, that's a lot of people actually.
Yep, it is. And I think also, social media really, depends what you want out of it, but it's vanity metrics for the most part. If I look at it and think, it's if having a bigger following is going to net you a bigger income, sure, then spend some time building that. But if it's not, because it's not, there we go. It's not the only way to generate income. There's lots of other ways of building a photography business. So it's one part of it, but I think it's so easy for people to, like you say, to get caught up with it, or so-and-so's got a bigger following than me.
Yeah, so as you said, this is a broadcast in itself. Maybe one day in the future, we can dedicate one to all of this as well. Because as I mentioned at the beginning, you're a personal development coach as well. So I think
exactly
package as well. So maybe a time for another broadcast.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's continue on with our slideshow here. So gear, I want to ask, are you flash person or ambient light?
No.
No.
Only in my studio. No, you won't see a flash gun on anywhere or off camera flash. I'm a natural light when it's outdoors and studio when it's outdoors.
Yeah, I think people get a little bit too obsessed sometimes when using a flash outdoors. It kind of, when the light is good, use it. But I think people are also used to using flash, but they become afraid of ambient light because ambient light's not something that you can control. But that's kind of part of the magic, actually. And
it's an interesting one.
When people say the reason why you shoot ambient or natural light is probably because you can't use a flash. I think the inverse as well. If you exclusively rely on a flash, it's probably because you can't shoot ambient lights.
Yeah, I think there is quite to find good outdoor for sure. I will put my hands up and say I would be uncomfortable using flash outdoors for a location shoot. It's not my zone of genius at all. And I think that the other thing is also with animals is it's not like a model that you can say to them, I need you to stand here and not move while I faff around and sort the lighting out. You've got to be able to kind of flex and move in the moment. And, you know, a lot of these shoots are very dictated by what the animals are doing. So, yeah, so for outdoors, it's just about, you know, finding decent natural light.
That makes a lot of sense. Plus, having so much gear slows you down and it may actually prevent you from getting the shot at the end. So I think just from a very traditional point of view as well, just camera, 50mm lens, whatever lens it is, and just having fun on a day. So making it work as opposed to forcing things to work with a variety of gear. I think there's also a reason why people fall out of love with photography is because they kind of force solutions into the mix. Whereas we just kind of want to have fun a little bit with what you got.
Yeah, and I think I'm a bit of a purist with the photography, and I don't enjoy sitting editing. I don't enjoy is probably the understatement. So for me, I want to get it as right as I can in camera. My work is very natural. I tend not to overcook the editing. Just that's my style of work. It's not a criticism of anybody who. I take my hat off to people who will happily spend 5 hours editing one photo. I just no.
That's different strokes at the end of the day.
Yes,
and it makes photography such a vibrant community. As we all have our little niches here and there, so it's not disparaging anyone who does spend a lot of time.
Absolutely not. I think
in front of a computer or using a lot of
some
flashes
people enjoy that. And for some people, that is the real. It's getting the image is a small part of it, and the rest of it is pulling it together and putting it all together. So I think it's not a criticism or a judgment or anything. Everybody does their own thing, but for me, it's about the photography and it's about the and I think it just comes back to that piece of I shot on film to start off with, and I don't think I've ever quite shaken off.
Okay, sorry, I'm losing you, or you maybe have lost me. I don't know if it's me freezing or Emma freezing. All right, so I'm going to try and solve it. Just going to talk to Emma. All right, so people watching in YouTube land or Facebook land, is it me freezing or Emma freezing? If I don't get a reply, I know it's me. Otherwise, I'll just quickly restart. So it's going to be a 30-second reboot. So just bear with us. Apologies. Oops. Everything.
Sorry. Are we back?
Seems like we're back, yes. With my side just in case, but everything seems fine. So, show must go on. I just wanted to read this comment from Jay, who's a regular here. Thank you, Jay, for all the support and the questions. We do value it quite a lot. Most definitely don't enjoy sitting time. I shoot straight out of camera most of the time, and luckily my corporate clients also want the photos at the same time. So that's everything coming together as it should. Which is a great zone to be in, where everything just starts making sense and it's something your client wants as well. Yeah, so it's a good zone to be in, Jay. Well done.
Yeah, absolutely. Well done, Jay. And I think if you're straight out of camera, that's awesome if you're getting that right.
All right, just going to get my slideshow back. Okay, we're good. Cool. All right, so sorry, just getting everything back the way it was. All right, so we talked about gear, broadly speaking, but
yes,
I want to talk about the photo.
Yeah, so this was a commission from this lady who wanted some pictures with her golden retriever puppy. So this was at Rosemary Hill, and obviously you can see we've timed this late. So I think we got together at about 4 o'clock ish to hit the golden hour pictures. There's a few in this set that if there's a blog on my website actually with some more pictures from this. So this little guy wasn't very keen on walking on this bridge. So and then of course I'm trying to make sure I stay in the middle of the bridge and don't tip over the edge into the water. But yeah, it was a nice fun shoot. Nice time of day to shoot with the lighting. Yeah, so gear wise, you asked me, I haven't really answered the question about camera kits. So I'm now shooting with a Z7 Mark II, and my preference really is to shoot with a 50mm or an 85mm on that camera. It's I've got its f4 2470 lens, which is fine for the most part, but I do think I would favor a prime lens over that for end result quality, really.
That is a big topic in world of photography. Having a choice between two lenses. Obviously, it would be nice having all the lenses, but these lenses tend to get expensive very quickly. So buy a prime or buy a multi-zoom. It's a big topic. Now, I think it all depends on what you do at the end.
Yes.
Primes are fun. Primes are very fun because they get you in position and you have to zoom with your feet. And it's a lot of exercise in the day, obviously, but it doesn't make you a lazy photographer. Like you have to get into the right spots and right angles with a prime, and obviously with it, get the right angles and the right composition, etc.
Yes, exactly. So yeah.
All right, so on we go. So nice little family shoot here. And a buggy.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't notice the bug.
Oh, yeah. 2 pugs.
Shame.
2 pugs.
I see the one camouflaged a little bit into the blue. Shame. So people know me personally will know I have the pug. So this immediately loved photo. But continue. Sorry.
So this was a very interesting picture. I think we're missing one cat in this picture because one of the cats was decided it actually didn't want to participate. But trying to get all of these animals into the shot together was a challenge. As you can see, the little black cat just went, cool, I'm going to sit right here. So my framing probably would have been slightly different without the black cat, but and then the little Yorkie there at the front also was and this the guy's got a box of treats behind him. We're trying to get them in position. I'm trying to get in position and just try and get that shot before the grey cat disappeared. And I think sometimes with these shoots, I think there should be about somebody doing the behind the scenes, because this kind of looks like the perfect shot, but it was many attempts, and it's like a lucky nanosecond, really.
That's a very good point. It's obviously everything that happened on a day that's encapsulated in a single photo. So it's not just a group photo. You luckily got every dog and a cat looking at a camera, but it's obviously the chaos behind the scenes, and looking at the photo just reminds you of everything. And it's also part of our job as photographers is to provide an event, to make everything enjoyable for everyone.
Exactly.
To be sparkly and accommodate everyone, to be a ringleader as such, but to make it pleasant for everyone. And so that's not only the stills that they capture on the day, but it's the memories attached to them and everything that happened behind the scenes.
Yes, and I think you make that's such an important point from a business point of view, is when people look at their images, they remember the experience they had on the day. So like you've said, the better you can make it for people, the more they love the pictures. And I think sometimes that's easier said than done if you're in a bit of a high stress environment. But it really does require being super present and and patient with people, and you know, that's, as I say, that can be challenging sometimes, but it really is, it's about the experience you create for people.
Now, especially important going forward. I had a guest over that we spoke about generative AI and all of these technologies slipping into the mix, like about 3-hour discussion. And something we raised was the personal experience that you're going to provide to your clients. You know, there's nothing personal about clapping a couple of prompts into an AI. So as photographers, this is going to be big in the future. Like you need to provide a big experience and a big event for your clients. It's what's going to separate us from the machines ultimately. So it's something to get good at, I suppose, something to investigate.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, next photo. All right, so first question, in studio. How often do you shoot in studio versus outside?
These days, I am probably 75% in studio, I'd say. So so this is one of the guide dog series that I did. So this is Simon with Vesper. Simon's in a wheelchair, so Vesper is his service dog. And it was interesting talking to Simon and talking to his parents who came with for the shoot, and his sister who came with for the shoot. And I mean, I think you can see the bond between these two very much. And his mum said to me, you know, not only do these dogs pick stuff up off the floor if something's dropped, and they open doors, and they're trained to bark, to call for help if there's a problem. So they're these, you know, these dogs have quite a lot of responsibility, but also for a young person in a wheelchair, life can be quite isolating. And she said Vesper plays a huge role in being a companion for him. And I just thought you know, you've got your pugs, I've got my dogs. We know as able-bodied people that dogs provide a huge amount for us, but for somebody who's stuck in the house sometimes and life can be lonely for, they add that whole other level of companionship and friendship.
Yeah, it's just unfathomable from my point of view. I just spoke to my fiance about it as well. As much as we rescue the dogs, they are rescuing us back. And just looking at this image, everything that you described, very, very heartwarming. And obviously, as photographers, we can't stop doing this. This is something that we play a vital role in capturing these moments and what it conveys to people. The moment there, obviously, and capturing the moment itself, but just looking at a photo like this and how it relates to our own lives and kind of how this resonates with us. Megan, you're by the sound of my voice. It's very touching looking at this.
My only thing I would have changed with this, because Vesper is obviously a sort of blonde color, and Simon, not Simon. Simon was wearing a pale gray top, and the only thing I would have changed is probably putting him in a slightly different, a slightly darker color, just to get a bit more contrast between the two of them. But you know what? I think also it's about, this is what was going on the day. I think this image for me deserved to be in black and white, because I think it just pares it down to literally the interaction between the pair of them. You know, so you can look at pictures ad infinitum and go, oh, wish I should have done that, and sometimes I think we have to go, do you know what, it came together beautifully, and here it is. So
yeah, I think also from maybe from a technical standpoint, you could have, you know, made the clothing darker and the dog could stand out a little bit, but I think also what this shows is unity between the two. Not contrast and just show unity. get this one. So this is the previous photo with the variety of dogs and cats and humans as well. So I really think you nailed it with the experience part. I have clients talk about the experience and not even the pictures sometimes.
Yep.
I spoke about this with my previous session. So there was a study out there pertaining to people going to nightclubs, and they were asked after the fact, what was the part that you enjoyed the most? It was getting ready with your friends. So I think, so don't discount the experience of getting ready and planning things out and staying in touch with people, getting their ideas on board, getting your ideas on board. Like, it's exciting for everybody to play a part. So as photographers, you shouldn't isolate yourself too much in the sense of, this is my project and only I get to have an opinion or something of the sort. Like, once people get involved and share their tidbits, it's exciting for everyone. And as Jay mentioned, that's sometimes the most fun part, actually.
And I think we can get very caught up in the technicality of photography. We have to be technically perfect, and and I don't think you clients don't see our images the same way we do necessarily. And I think, again, what makes people enjoy their pictures is what they remember from that experience. And I think that is, you can be the most brilliant photographer ever, but if people don't enjoy working with you, they won't enjoy the images.
Absolutely. And another comment, wow, what a wonderful interview. Emma is authentic, and I like how she is approaching her photography. This is liberating. Thank you so much for your comments, Solomon. Thank you. Do appreciate it.
Thank you, Solomon. Thank you.
All right. So gear. So we kind of avoided the flash topic, but now we're in studio. What gear do you use? What lighting do you use? What is your go-to light modifier, etc.?
Yep. Okay. So I'm a one light wonder as far as I possibly can be. So this was I've got a Godox AD300. So this was with a big, I'm just trying to think, it's probably a 1.5 meter octo, slightly off to the left of here. And that's it. And then there's probably a bit of a reflector to one side, but I'm not sure it was doing that much really. So it's shooting on black. I'll just use one light because I like the tone and the on the face. And dogs as a general rule need to be pretty evenly lit, because obviously you've got, especially apart from pugs, you've obviously got a long nose which you can't just light from one side very effectively. So I tend to, again, I keep it as simple as possible for ease, and because you can't always get your model to sit exactly where you want them.
And so the big light source, you mentioned a 150 centimeter octobox, provides a big broad light, obviously, but a bit of playroom in terms of subject movement and whatnot. That's a good choice back with the 8300 as well. Jealous.
No, it's great. It's great. And I love that because it's, I bought a second battery for it, and it's portable. It's because these images were shot at the Photo ZA. They've got a bit of a studio in there because we had to have a space that was wheelchair accessible, and my studio is down a flight of stairs, so it's completely out. So it's great to have a light that just packs up into a packet and goes. Because prior to that, I was see, I'm showing my age and the amount of time I've been doing this. I've got a set of Bowen's Gemini Esprit 500 lights, which weigh a ton, and they need to be plugged in, and you can't do high-speed sync and all of that stuff. So
little tanks otherwise.
Say again?
Little tanks otherwise.
Yes, exactly. So
you don't drop it on your toe or anything.
Correct, exactly. So the AD300 is great because it's just so portable and lightweight. I love it.
Yeah, I see Jay here dropping truth bombs in the comment section. Sometimes I think it's unfair to feel this type of happiness and being able to freeze time and just play such a vital role and having such a timeless experience. We live forever through what we do. I love the quote, if you think photographs are not important. Okay, so it's cut off on the screen, but I can continue saying, If you think photography or photographs are not important, wait until they are all you have left.
Yep.
Very philosophical today, Jay. Thank you so much. Thank you for your contributions.
Jay.
All right, so let's see. Let's go on. Well, slideshow. I like this one. I think everything you explained earlier about dogs making eye contact with the camera, I think it just shows here how it makes a difference. Like we often capture our pets and whatnot doing random things, but just to have a portrait-esque image of an animal like this, it's very deeply resonating.
Yeah, so this is Jane, who was mine, and I took this photo 2 months before she passed away. So she was 13, so she got to a grand old age. She was a Ridgeback Weimaraner mix, so she was a big dog. She did well, and this was shot with one light as well. So which with a white background. This was a project I kind of started with one light, and then I had some dogs that were white, and some dogs that were black, and of course the exposure on the backdrop was all different. So it's a little, it wasn't the best planning on my part with that, so it needed some retouching doing. Anyway, this one didn't. So I shot this with the Z7 with an 85mm lens on, and I've got I think it's the 1.8 85 I've got, and I shot it. I think I probably had this at 1.8. So I was going for a very sharp eyes, shallow depth of field with the dogs. And then as I started to shoot other people's dogs, I got less brave with shooting at 1.8, because obviously you've got to be so accurate with your focus with that. But it worked for this picture of her. And again, like Jay said, it's one of those things. We've got a bunch of dogs here, and I don't think I've photographed them enough, if that's possible, properly. And
makes sense.
So it's a shame. So she went into the exhibition I had in March at Photo ZA, at Photo ZA, which was it was called The Power of the Dog, named after a Rudyard Kipling poem. It just featured a load of old dogs, and of course, as the exhibition went up, I was getting messages from people saying that their dogs had passed away. Some of them passed away before the exhibition went up, so it was a little bit of a melancholy body of work, really. But it was just a reminder of the sort of fragility of things, and the importance of having photographs.
Absolutely. So if you have a smartphone with you, obviously capture all of these moments, but and you have it professionally done as well, makes a huge difference. And having that printed in your house makes a huge difference, as I said. Okay, so that's the slideshow. We spoke earlier before we went online that I needed to show a segment of yours called Black Dog Syndrome.
Oh, yes.
So I'm just going to pop that on. So I have the screen share here. We'll go all the way to the top. Sorry, just bear with me. So this from your website.
Yeah, this is when you sent me the questions through. I didn't remember to send these to you until you sent me the questions and asking about what was an interesting, memorable body of work. And this is probably the most interesting and memorable body of work that I've put together.
All right, so tell us about it.
So this was, and you'll notice a bit of a sort of repeat this theme here. And I think this is something I am very passionate about encouraging photographers to do, is to have some sort of creative side project on the go. When we're doing photography full time, it's inevitable you get caught up with doing stuff that pays the bills and stuff that maybe doesn't completely light your fire. And I think it's important for your own creativity to have a project going. And this was a project I think it arrived out of the ether somewhere. black dogs are statistically the least likely to be adopted from a shelter and the most likely to be put to sleep. It's people don't like them. I read up quite a lot about it, and there was a bit of a theory there's a bit of a marketing piece with it, that if you've got 5 black dogs all together in a shelter, they all look the same, nothing stands out. But if you put one in amongst some different dogs, then they're more likely to be picked. I don't know, but statistically worldwide, they are the least likely to find a home if they wind up at a shelter. So my little creative brain went, "Ooh, cool, let's do a series on this." And I just started playing with this black on black studio setup. And I thought, I'm onto something here with this. It's quite interesting. I got great feedback from it. So I thought, let me put together a whole series, which I did. And this work went viral globally. So this went on, I popped this up onto Board Panda. If anybody, if not familiar with Board Panda, it's quite a visually creative website that shares photography stuff. I put it on there and it started to ratchet up views very rapidly. It ended up, I ended up getting a feature in the Daily Mail in the UK. For the most part, you wouldn't want to be featured in the Daily Mail really in the UK, but in their cultural section.
Yes,
and it went viral globally. And this is a project anybody looking, go and have a look at the link, because you'll see what really kind of ties this concept together is that these photographs were all accompanied by captions. So I decided to put these together, and instead of making it a depressing series of, this dog sat at a shelter for so long and it's all really sad, I captioned it like the dogs were describing themselves on Tinder. So they all had little made up stories, and that's what I think it was, the combination of the work and the wording that kind of caught people's imaginations. And I think it was that concept tying together that really made it popular. And I almost didn't share it like this, because I looked at it and thought, I'd like to be thought of as a serious artist, as serious an artist you can get when you photograph dogs. And I thought these captions are a bit childish and they're a bit silly, and will people think less of me if I share it like that? And actually just had to be brave and put it out. So there's another piece of advice for photographers listening is follow your instinct with making work and sharing it.
Yes, something I touched on earlier. It sounds cheesy, but you have to follow your heart and soul with this. If you do anything that doesn't relate to your heart and soul and passion, etc., it shows. Like your work looks disingenuous. It looks inauthentic, and people latch on to stuff that doesn't reflect genuineness and authenticity. I see that's fully on display here. Is that authenticity and the love that you have, and obviously taking it one step further with the little captions here. I've been reading them as you talk as well. Like this obviously is a you project, and this makes sense to you, and it shows everywhere, and that resonates with people as well.
It does, and I think there's so many levels to it, but I think it's the kind of almost the vulnerability resonated with people on some level somehow, because and I think that's the thing, we're afraid to show up as our true selves because we fear we're going to be judged or laughed at. And this for me was a very big learning in actually just put it out and do it. And it paid off for me in multiple ways. So not only did I get kind of my work out on a global scale, I think my Instagram following went up by about 4,000 people in 24 hours. It was ridiculous. And I've had some of these pieces have been exhibited internationally. It won awards, which is always great to win an award. Always looks good, and it got me quite a lot of commercial work here. as well. So it paid off in a monetary way as well. And I think that's the thing for me with this project, it was with no kind of creative parameters of I have to please somebody or I'm going to get paid for this. I just kind of just let it loose, and it attracted more work in. So lots of valuable lessons in there, I think.
I think so too, yes. And no follow-up questions on that. I think you did a perfect job explaining everything pertaining to the black dog syndrome thematic concept that you did. You're finding a little bit of you in it and finding a lot of you in it eventually, and it just exploded from there. So just to keep touch with what you love and putting your passion out there. Don't fake it till you make it. It's going to pay off eventually, as it did with you. This is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
All right. So no more slideshow. We don't have the share screen anymore. So it's back to interview time. So I have 2 or 3 more questions left to ask you, if you don't mind. All right. So we had a lot of advice to unpackage here, but if you could boil it down to a paragraph or 2, what advice would you give aspiring photographers out there?
Yeah, it is a great question. So I think the thing is to explore, and if you don't know what it is you love photographing when you start your business, your career, that's okay. Go and photograph things, photograph multiple things, and find out what it is you enjoy. Because when you try different things out, the path will be revealed to you. And I think often and it's interesting, not just in photography, you know, I'm in a community of people who are setting up coaching businesses as well. And there's, you know, various pieces of advice. You must have a niche. Must you? When you first start out, how are you supposed to know what you want to do if you haven't kind of explored it? So I think it's okay to do that. The other thing I found really useful was doing courses with other photographers whose work you like, who interest you, because I think you can learn an awful lot in a day of doing a course with somebody. So that's a really valuable piece of advice as well. And I think, like we've said, just follow your got a friend who used the phrase follow the heat, and I think follow the heat.
Now, so for everyone I interviewed so far, they are currently where they are, and it's not how they started. So you touched on the topic of exploring many different things, which I think is good advice as well. So I had many photographers who started off as a wedding photographer, not that anymore. Who started off as a portrait photographer, not that anymore. Who started off as an event photographer, not that anymore. Right. So this idea of boxing yourself into a niche, I get it. Like you kind of create a style and a brand for yourself, but you don't always allow your wings to spread as much as it could potentially spread. So by trying out different things here and there, you could find something that you love, and this love will just generate a bigger and bigger love, and you'll find yourself captivated and hooked by it, and that becomes your direction now.
And I think the other piece that we've touched on here is to have some sort of creative side project going that's just for you, that's something that interests you. I think a lot of the photography books you'll see that people have published, it's their personal work. I think your personal work is important, and it's okay to have an ongoing project, but have something. So if you know, we all know, if you're working as a photographer, if it's how you earn your income, you've got to be earning the money. But to have something that is not related to money, have something that's just related to this interests me. I think that's what I've been pulled into all sorts of things by being intrigued. This is a topic that interests me. How can I photograph this? And it kind of opens up a whole other world of stuff, you know?
Yeah, and having that side project obviously is not be deadlines and stresses. Like still have something resembling a deadline to it. Like obviously it's not something that should just sit in a corner forever, but not having that strict deadline and people criticizing and having opinions and whatnot. Like, this is a very you project, and you're taking full charge of it. And,
Yes.
Within it,
Yes.
discover new things about yourself as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other advice I would give is collaborate with other people as well, because that's, if I look back on how my photography business grew, it grew quite organically, and it grew from collaborating with people, going to, I started going to Claw and taking pictures, and the more people you have kind of that you pull into your world with your work, the more people will share your work out with the world as well. And I mean that in a genuine way, not not in a manipulative way, but the more you can kind of build your community through collaborating, the more success you're going to see as well.
They did an experiment like that. They had a big platform with tiny little robots on wheels, a little mothership, quote unquote, that fed data and information to the little robots. And there were like hundreds of them on this platform, right? And they were programmed to speed off in different directions. Now, as you can assume or expect, a lot of them bumped into one another and they fell off, and it was just chaos. But as they bumped into one another, they had little sensors on them. And every time they bumped into one another, it fed to the mothership and it provided information back. So eventually, over time, all of these little robots kept going in different directions, but they kind of orientated themselves around one another. So they didn't necessarily... the point I'm getting at with this is that when we bump off one another, share information, it may not always be pleasant, but try and make it pleasant or at best. But when we create this little hive mind of inspiration and helping out one another, making sure that we are kind of sticking on the right path, sharing ideas as well, healthy criticism, etc., it helps us to orientate ourselves individually in our life in relation to how everybody else is performing as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned Claw. That's my second last question. Do you want to get into that a little bit? So just to kind of cap off our interview, I think this is something that you're at present very busy with.
Yeah. So Claw, after I'd kind of started getting involved with Santon SPCA, the animal welfare world opened up for me. And what drew me to Claw, and what I really love about Claw, is they are technically not a shelter. They are a veterinary hospital that kind of services a very impoverished area. So they provide veterinary care to the local folks who've got animals and need help with them. And that drew me to them. And I think I'd seen something on Facebook that there had been a forced relocation of an informal settlement, and Claw had gone in to go and rescue the animals that had been left behind. They had to go, and unfortunately there were people who wouldn't leave because their animals were there. And I think there's this, I mean, again, this is another conversation, but there's this misconception that because people are poor, that somehow they don't have feelings for animals, or they don't care, or it astounds me. And I kind of, it resonated with me because I thought this is so interesting from a photography storytelling point of view, and also what amazing work these people are doing. So I got in touch with them and said, hey, I'm a photographer, can I come and take some pictures? And that was in 2011, and I have had 4 dogs from them since. And they're an organization that I go back to again and again. I'll go and help them with photographing the dogs that need homes, because they've got, being where they are, they've got literally a load of brown township dogs, and they're typically not very attractive to people. So being able to take pictures of the dogs and have them out of their shelter environment so it doesn't look sad and miserable, and to be able to take a really great picture of the dog and get their personality really helps people to resonate with the dog and then go and adopt it. That's the plan. So that it's been the photography I've done for them, I think has been a real game changer for that little organization in that very rural spot. So I think like I said, for what drew me to that is just that also that community work, and dogs are great levelers. It doesn't matter how much money you've got, who you are. If you love a dog, you love a dog, and to be able to do work that supports an organization that helps people kind of care for their dogs when they don't have much else. Actually, a lot of these folks. So it's a cause that's very close to my heart there.
And we thank you for it. It's highly commendable work, and got a passion, and everything that has accommodated this interview really shown tonight. And I feel myself inspired. I'm certain everybody watching feels themselves inspired as well. As mentioned in the comments, there's a genuine authenticity to you, and it reflects in your work as well. And so from our side, please continue what you're doing, and keep inspiring the rest of us. So thank you so much for all the effort that you have put in.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for the interest in my work and allowing me a platform to talk about photographing dogs. Crazy dog lady here.
So if you want to follow Emma, there are links in the description and also the comment section. So please do follow Emma if you want to keep up with her journey and what she's busy with at the moment. And I think with that, my last question: what lies ahead? What is in the pipeline as far as your photography is concerned?
Difficult one. I'm very fortunate to have the exhibition opportunity at Photo ZA next year. So I have got to come up with a new body of work. I think that's the wonderful thing about, like you said, with a creative project needs a deadline. So mine have a deadline of, Emma, you've got an exhibition in March 2024. What are you going to do? So it's coming up with what will be the next thing with that. I've got some nice commercial work for some local dog brands coming up. So it's lovely to be able to support other local businesses with imagery for their products that they're selling. And then obviously the coaching I do alongside the photography as well. So it's building the coaching business up as well. So quite a lot going on.
Okay, now we can't wait to see it unfold. So as mentioned again, reiterating, if you want to follow Emma's journey, please do follow her on social media and the website as well. But I think that's going to be it from our side. Thank you so much, Emma. This was a wonderful interview. Thank you so much for shedding light on your work and also what it means to you. Got very, very, as you said, chasing the heat there, very, very passionate. But yeah, thank you for doing all of this from our side. Highly appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And to everybody watching out there, thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time. So that's going to be it from my side, Conrad, on behalf of CameraStuff. Hope you have a pleasant night further. Cheers and goodbye.